everybody. Welcome to another episode of Money and Change. My name is Ira Robinson. As always, we are here with Stu Shear. Hello, Stu.
Hey, Ira, how you doing today?
It's been a heck of a week and a long week at that, but I'm doing well today.
Well, that's good. I was handing out candy last night down at the lodge to all the little kids that were downtown for the big October Halloween parade. And boy, was it spooky.
Were there any candygrams for Mongo?
No candygrams from Mongo, but we did have one of the Lodge brothers was down at the end of the street, and he had on a ghost costume that would even scare me. And he was directing people to the lodge for free candy. And it was amazing. I mean, we had 2 huge bins of candy, and these little kids come up. And I say, well, what do you say? And they go, trick or treat, trick or treat. And I said, okay, you know what the trick is? And they go, no. I said, the candy's all mine. Moo, ha, 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 ha. You know, I act like I'm pulling it away, but then I give it to them, you know. And one little kid was trying to be a wise, you know what. And he had a Frankenstein costume on, and he had these big, gigantic hands. And he was going to take a scoop out of this thing, you know, and deprive a lot of other kids out of candy because he could take, you know, a bag load of candy with these gigantic hands. I said, nope, take them off. So anyhow, he didn't like that part, but, you know, you got to be fair to everybody. So we had fun last night for a little bit.
Yeah, you ruined his planned looting.
Yeah, well, you know, hey, that's the way it goes. The one trick that we used to do with my cousins during Halloween, they put a sign on the front of the house by the front door. It says, ring the doorbell and then go around to the back of the house. And so people would come up and ring the doorbell. They go around to the back of the house. There'd be a sign there. And it would say, go ring the doorbell at the front of the house to get your candy. And it was just a constant circle. And he had them fooled. We used to have fun with that.
I love it.
But, you know, hey, that's back when I was in junior high. And Mad Magazine was the big magazine of the week. Not Time Magazine, but it was Mad Magazine.
Oh, I loved that magazine.
Oh,
that one
I
and
loved
Cracked.
it too.
That one and Cracked. I loved them both.
Yeah. Brings back old memories. Well, hey, we've got some good stuff on the show today, and we've got some shout outs, and let's go to WCET 101.7 in Columbia, South Carolina. Hey, thanks for carrying the show. We really appreciate it. And if you're listening on WCET, hey, listen for us every week, because we always have new material every week, because there's always something going on in the world of finance. Also, the Big Family Homestead, a big shout out to Brad and Krista out in Wisconsin as they're getting used to things out there and getting ready for cold weather. And I was sending Brad an email to see how he was doing with his cold weather gear. And he said, oh, yeah, we have all this kind of stuff, and we have kerosene heaters and propane heaters, and they're out on a farm in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin. And the winters out there get a little bit brutal. But if you get a chance, go to their YouTube channel, The Big Family Homestead. And they're great people. I had a chance to meet them this past summer. Fantastic, really likable people. Very knowledgeable, too. Also, a big shout out to Shana Knack at the University of Findlay in Findlay, Ohio at www.findlay.edu. And, you know, if you're ever in the Findlay, Ohio area, check out the university. It's not a real big school, but they do have a lot of courses and really nice buildings and excellent faculty. Also, a big shout out to D52 Creative Services, better known as Design52creativeservices.com. And if you go to their website, you can take a look at their services at www.d52creativeservices, all one word.com. And they do marketing, branding, event planning, and creative services. So if you have any ideas that you want to do, hey, go ahead, go to the website and If you get a chance, tell Mary Frances Rodriguez Barnes that I said so, that I announced you on the show. Anyhow, let's go on. How about Show Us, Don't Tell Us with Skills and Papa Bear? Boy, I was on the other night with those guys, and they weren't doing their show, but oh, we had one heck of a chat. And even though I've never personally met them, I mean, we're like best buds. So if you get a chance, listen to Show Us, Don't Tell Us on the Open Eyes Network. Also, big shout out to collegemarching.com. They did a big feature with video on the Ohio University Alumni Marching Band. And I was there for homecoming a few weeks ago, and we had a lot of things on YouTube for that. And to see a national, I'll call it a website, they feature all the college and university bands, what's going on. And they had a really nice article about our alumni group from 1967. Also, the Ohio University Band, the Marching 110, is now rated number 3 in the country, and number 1 was the Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. So that was kind of interesting to see those two bands that were announced for positions 1 and 3 out of 10. So that's all the shout outs that I've got right now, but we have a disclaimer before we start the show. The information contained in this presented material is from the posting of news agencies on the internet and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the owners of this program. We are not responsible for and expressly disclaim all liability for damages of any kind arising out of use, reference to, or reliance on any information contained in this broadcast. The information provided is not offered as financial advice, financial planning, or for investment purposes, so you want to use this information at your own risk. Now, if you want to, go to our website and check it out. We've got a lot of information there, a lot, and it will help you make up your mind as to maybe what bank you want to go to and use. You might want to check the national debt. You might want to check out some of the stories that we have there, especially the most recent ones on the 369 guideline for emergency savings. So we're going to cover that today. Also, there's a little, how do I want to put it? I received an email. Being on a local power commission, I received an email from one of our daily email sources that they talk about different power supplies and different things that are being done all over the country. And they started talking about an emergency drill based on electromagnetic pulse or when the grid goes down. And I thought, whoa, they're talking about that, and we're listening to things about Korea and their supposed shining star satellites and so forth. And now I'm seeing this drill that's going to be planned. And it came from, I believe, an article from the ham radio operators, and they're going to be involved. And I thought, whoa, I mean, we better talk about some preparedness here. What happens if an EMP event goes down or the grid suddenly collapses due to a computer failure or whatever? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Also, you know, we have a lot of things that are going on in the currency world. And from the currency chart at xe.com today at 4:10, I missed it by about 10 minutes. Usually I'm dead on it right at 4 o'clock, but this was 4:10. The euro dropped 2 cents this week. Last week it was $1.18. Now it's $1.16 to the US dollar. The Great British Pound, it stayed the same at $1.31. The Australian dollar dropped 2 cents at 76 cents. The Canadian dollar dropped to 77 cents from 80 cents, so it dropped 3 cents. The Swiss franc is at $1. It's at straight parity with the US dollar. The Japanese yen dropped 0.02 of a cent, and so it's down to 8.7 hundredths of a cent. It's so minuscule. It's crazy. Chinese yuan, it was $15 or 15 cents, 15.1 cents last week. It's now straight at 15 cents. It declined just by a hair. The Kuwaiti dinar dropped a penny. It's down to $3.30. Vietnamese dong went up in price. It's now up to 22,721.65 dong to the dollar. Actually, it went down in price because the higher that number is, uh, I would hate to have a wheelbarrow to pull around with one dong notes. I don't even think that they make those. But could you imagine 22,721.65 dong to the dollar? That's that's wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin last week was $5,630.42 for one Bitcoin. Now it went up to $5,892.65 per Bitcoin. It just keeps going up. And I think there was an article from Prince Walid from over in Saudi Arabia, and he was saying that it's eventually going to crash. And I don't really want to get involved in cryptocurrencies because, they're just out there. They're just digital numbers. And can you really spend them? Can you have a wallet that you have in your hip pocket that you can go spend them? You have electronic wallets. Well, what happens if the whole system crashes? Do you actually have what's in your wallet? Can you prove it? And that's what's so interesting. And when you take a look at physical currency, something you can hold in your hand, like precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, rhodium, I mean, even copper, you can hold on to it. It's yours. But if you go and you say, well, I'm going to get involved in the precious metal market, don't jump into it until you've done the following. And I've said this on every show, and I mean it. Pay down your debt, put some money aside, buy some long-term food for emergency, make sure you have plenty of water and ways to purify it just in case we don't have a water source. Also, make sure you have your medications, your vitamins, and have good seasonal clothes. So it's getting cold right now, and it's time for the cold weather jackets. And what's funny is I see kids standing on the corner in the morning, and they're not wearing any jacket at all. And it might be 40 degrees. They're just standing there. I'm like, what's wrong with these kids? I'd be shivering, but they just brush it off. So make sure you have good clothes suitable for the weather. And once you get all of that done, then go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to look at the precious metals and I'm going to find a reasonable source, which whether or not it's APMEX, Silver.com, Kitco, and there's a whole bunch of others. Then you make your decision which one is the most reputable one, and then go ahead and get your precious metals and make sure that you store it in a safe place. And don't go out and buy big bars of stuff. Could you imagine walking around with a big bar of silver in your pants? I mean, you'd be leaning to one side.
Is that silver in your pants, or are you just happy to? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, no, we don't want to go there, do we?
I mean, it'd be ridiculous to carry around that much. I mean, that big of a brick. I mean, literally, that's what they are, is a brick of silver. No, there'd be no way.
Well, just don't put it in your hip pocket, and we won't go there. Anyhow, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get the 1 ounce coins, or the 10th ounce coins, or the half ounce coins, and you can get those. And it's a lot easier to break things down for barter or trade or payment. For example, if you're going to get gold, why not get the 10th ounce gold coins? They're small. They're 99.999 pure gold. And you can pick them up, I believe, $140 some for one. And of course, it varies all the time, but make sure you have physical gold. Do not get a paper certificate. Where's the gold? Where's the silver? It's not on that piece of paper. It says that it's there, but if you go back to that company and let's say there's a financial crash and you want your money and you go back, they say, well, sorry, we're out of business and we oversold the gold how many hundred times over with those paper certificates. And the same thing with silver certificates. They've oversold the market and all they've given you is a piece of paper. They've taken your money and you may or may not get your physical gold or silver or platinum or palladium, whatever, back. So you have to be careful with that. Please be careful with that. Now, gold right now dropped in price. Last week it was $1,287.90 an ounce. And now it's down to $1,267.09 an ounce. Then you take a look at silver. Silver last week was $17.23 an ounce, and I call that poor man's gold because a lot of people can afford silver. And silver has a lot of uses in industry, and eventually that value is going to go up. And I imagine if there's a crash, who knows, gold could probably go to $5,000 an ounce. And it's said that maybe silver could go to $500 an ounce. I'm not sure. But right now, silver is at $16.78 an ounce. And I think if I had the money, I might just go ahead and get a couple ounces of silver. But again, that depends on how the markets are and finding a reputable source. But do your homework first. Also, platinum. Last week, platinum was $922.95 an ounce. It dropped. It's down to $917.81 an ounce. Palladium, it went up for some reason. Last week it was $960.77. It's now at $971.64. And then there's Ethereum. You know, Ethereum for a long time was in the 300s, 300, 305, and a few pennies here and there. It dropped. It went down to $296.34 for one Ethereum coin. So when you take a look at the currency market, you have to do it on a daily basis. I use xe.com. There's fxstreet.com. There are plenty of others. But you can get real-time information on that. And then if you want to go to looking at crypto metals or Bitcoin, things like that, there are other places where you can go for that. And you just have to look. And eventually, you're going to find it. All you have to do is maybe go to CoinPro, QOINPRO. That's one of them. Cointelegraph is another. Just go out and take a look at the stuff that's there. And CoinDesk is another one, CoinDesk.com. And you can go out and you can check this stuff. Do you want to waste your time on cryptocurrencies? Having a computer try to figure out the algorithms so you can come up with one Bitcoin? It's a difficult and long-running task just to get one coin. Well, let's get into the stories that we have for this week. And from Zero Hedge, we had one about Bitcoin not really accepted here. And it said UK banks too scared of regulator to open accounts for crypto companies. They said, want to set up a company to trade cryptocurrencies in the City of London? Forget about it. British banks are shunning companies that handle cryptocurrencies, forcing many to open accounts in Gibraltar, Poland, and Bulgaria, and prompting some to question the UK's ambitions to be a global hub for the fast-growing fintech sector. Investor interest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has surged since their prices rocketed this year, but traditional banks are steering clear of the sector, fearing it is riddled with criminals and fraudsters. I think it's all about control, and we've talked about that in the past. Well, anyhow, nobody will give us a bank account in the UK, said James Godfrey, head of capital markets at BlockX, that's BLOCKEX, which is a platform for trading digital assets, including cryptocurrencies. And he said Metro Bank recently shut its UK account, forcing it to rely on a Bulgarian lender to keep trading. And Mr. Godfrey said the disruption had prompted BlockX to consider moving to a more welcoming location, such as Toronto, Canada. It's almost an impossibility to get a UK bank account, and we in Gibraltar and Poland are the two jurisdictions that are most stable. Well, I don't know about that. But it's too iffy right now. I mean, if somebody offered me 1 Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoins and I had a wallet to put it in and I could hold it and track it and everything, I'd be worried about it because, the system crashes, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And it would not only be for cryptocurrencies, but everybody else as well. Well, there was an ex-HSBC currency trader that was convicted of fraud in massive front-running scandal, according to Zero Hedge and Bloomberg. It said ex-HSBC currency trader Mark Johnson, who was unwittingly captured on an audio recording saying, "I think we got away with it," has just been convicted by a jury in New York of fraud for front-running a $3.5 billion, that's with a B, dollar transaction that netted his firm some $8 million in illicit profits. And that came from an article from Bloomberg. Former HSBC Holdings PLC currency trader Mark Johnson was found guilty for fraud, and it was a victory for U.S. prosecutors as they seek to root out misconduct in global financial markets. He was convicted on Monday after a month-long trial in Brooklyn. Johnson was the first person to be tried since the global currency rigging scandal that resulted in global banks paying more than the $10 billion in penalties. The charges stem from HSBC's execution of a trading order from Cairn, that's C-A-I-R-N, Energy PLC, in 2011 to convert the proceeds of a unit sale from dollars into pounds. Well, this sends a signal to traders and banks that this type of behavior is absolutely inappropriate and will be pursued by the government, said Michael Weinstein, a former Justice Department trial attorney. That's a big hammer over the banks. It may force them to monitor and self-regulate their people. Hey, nobody's gone to jail yet. You take a look at Vietnam. They catch them messing around over there. What do? They throw them in jail or they shoot them. You take a look at China. They throw them in jail or shoot them. You take a look at Iceland. They throw them in jail and they put them on an island out in the middle of nowhere, and your only view is from snow-capped volcanic mountains. You have criminals out there that are doing their customers wrong. They're either rigging the markets or they're doing things illegally, and they haven't been caught. And when they are caught, then there needs to be some punishment, not a slap on the hand, and don't put them in some ivory palace federal penitentiary. That's my feeling on it. I don't know about you. What do you think, Ira?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's an insane situation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you get politicians and criminals and bankers. Boy, that's almost synonymous.
I was going to say it's kind of all one and the same, right?
Oh, my God. Politicians, bankers, and criminals. Oh, my. Well, not all bankers are criminals. I'll tell you that right now. There are a lot of good ones out there. It's just the bad ones that really make them really look bad. I mean, it's really bad. But, HSBC was selected by Cairn Energy PLC to execute a foreign exchange transaction, which was going to require converting approximately $3.5 billion in sales into British pound sterling back in October of 2011. But before executing that trade, he tipped off a bunch of HSBC traders who loaded up their proprietary accounts with pounds just before the massive trade sent the currency higher. Now, the defendants allegedly betrayed their clients' confidence and corruptly manipulated the foreign exchange market to benefit themselves, said Assistant Attorney General Caldwell. That's Caldwell. And this case demonstrates the criminal division's commitment to hold corporate executives to the largest corporations and the most significant and sophisticated institutions responsible for their crimes. Well, this is how it kind of transpired. In the last couple of weeks, tidbits of the prosecution case made its way into the media recently, and including reports last week that Johnson used the code phrase, "My watch is off," to trigger trading by HSBC traders all around the globe. Meanwhile, as Law 360 recently pointed out, jurors also had the opportunity to hear some rather damning recordings of Johnson's phone conversations with traders, including the one that says, "I think we got away with it." Well, we'll wait and see what happens. Will he get slapped on the hand? Will he get a big monetary fine, or will they throw him in the Gray Bar Hotel? Gray Bar Hotel. Have you ever heard that before, Ira?
I have indeed, yes, and thankfully I've never been there.
Well, gee whiz, the Gray Bar Hotel. I wonder how swanky it is.
From what I've heard, Iceland has a pretty nice view in theirs.
Well, yeah, it's 3 hots and a cot. And you never know who your roommate's going to be. Probably a mass murderer or Sweet William, you never know. But, something has to be done with these guys. I mean, good grief. Maybe they ought to have a separate penitentiary, one for bankers, one for politicians. That way they don't talk back and forth to each other and figure out a new way to screw the customers. It's frustrating. It's like today, Papa Bear posted from Show Us Don't Tell Us, but he posted something on Facebook today that said the U.S. elections were rigged. And I read that and I thought, oh man, that really, if that's true, that really upsets me. That somebody behind the scenes is actually pulling some strings and so forth. And they had some statements in there about that. And I thought, man, that really ticks me off. So I went ahead and put a frowny on it because I was mad. And I was starting to put a comment in, and guess what? My computer locked up and I couldn't put the comment in. And I think Facebook was saying, you can't do that. We're censoring that. Everything locked up. So I thought, okay, I'll shut the computer down. I'll do it again. So I go to the site, click the frowny, went to type the stuff in, it locked up again. 2 times in a row. So Facebook is playing around with a few things. I don't know if they have an automatic censor every time you hit a frowny to complain about something, then it locks you out. But, it's crazy. A lot of stuff is coming out in the news lately about elections and rigging and all this other stuff. I always look at it this way. If you've got an illegal activity going on, put it out in the light. Expose it. Make the corrections and go on with life. And don't go back and do the criminal thing again. But it's going to get worse and worse and worse in the next few weeks. Especially when they're saying Antifa is going to raise all kinds of cane on November 4th. Who knows? They might just get involved in a big pot party and just mellow out. Hopefully there's no violence someplace. Because we don't need it. We really
exactly.
don't. Well, China is going to be doing something in the next couple of months that'll really affect us. They're going to launch a petro yuan, which is the yuan renminbi or RMB, is their currency. And now they're going to try to get around the petrodollar, which the world is using right now. So if you want to buy oil, you have to do it in dollars. Well, they're going to do it in yuan. And according to an article that was in Zero Hedge this week, he says that the world's former chief economist wants to replace the U.S. dollar with a single global supercurrency, saying it will create a more stable global financial system. And the dominance of the greenback is just the root cause of the global financial and economic crisis, said Justin Yifu Lin, told Bruegel, a Brussels-based policy research think tank. And he said, the solution to this is to replace the national currency with a global currency. Could Bitcoin be that global currency? Well, as Pepe Escobar recently noted, to overcome the excessive domination of the limited number of reserve currencies is the politest way of stating what the BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have been discussing for years now, how to bypass the US dollar as well as the petrodollar. So Beijing is ready to step up the game. Soon China will launch a crude oil futures contract priced in yuan. This means that Russia, as well as Iran, the other key node of Eurasia integration, may bypass the U.S. sanctions by trading energy in their own currencies or in yuan. The new triad of oil, yuan, and gold is actually a win-win-win. No problem that all if energy providers prefer to be paid in physical gold instead of yuan. And I think what they're trying to get back to is the gold standard. And we should have never gotten away from the gold standard. But we did, and that was back when Nixon was president, if I remember right. And then we get into fiat currencies and so forth. Gold-backed currencies are great. You have a basis on everything. And the way things are right now with all this paper money floating around, we've talked about bubbles in the past. We've talked about the housing bubble. And up in Canada, I guess it's really starting to burst. Then you also have the student loan bubble with all the students out there with, I don't know, what was it, $3 trillion worth of student loans. And they can't pay them. Or they're going to be paying for them for the rest of their lives. And then you've got the auto loan bubble. And this fall, you're going to see a lot of used cars come back because people can't afford it. You go to some of these dealers and they want to take your car and they'll say, we'll sell you the car. But in the fine line print, if you can read it, you might be paying for it for 7 years. And instead of paying for a $30,000 car after you got done making the payments, you probably paid them $45,000 or more. That's not good. So I don't know what the used car lots are looking like over in Fort Wayne, but I know around here, the dealers are starting to sweat a little bit because they have a lot of cars in stock.
Yeah, we have, we're sort of a strange hodgepodge here in Fort Wayne. We have a bar on every corner, a church on the other corner, and a car salesman on another corner. I mean, it's insane the amount of all three of them that we have in our little area here. And yeah, they're all over the place. A lot of cars just kind of piling up all over.
Well, in my town, back when I was growing up, and that was after Methuselah, by the way. Wasn't all that long ago, but basically you take a look at what was here, and we had basically a bar for every church or parish in town. So if you had 33 bars, you had 33 churches. So that was one for each denomination. Then you take a look at the car dealers, and we only had 2 new car dealers and maybe 3 used car dealers. So we weren't basically on every corner with a used car dealership. Now we're just down to one major new car dealership, and who sells a lot of trailers. Have you ever heard of Paul Sherry
The
Inc.?
name's familiar. Yeah.
Well, they were up in Indiana, up your way, and now they're down here, and they sell campers. And I go by there and I see all of these campers, all kinds, big motorhomes, little campers that you put on the hubcap on the back of a truck, yeah, tow behind campers, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, wow, I mean, in this market, who's buying them? And I have a friend of mine that works there back in the finance department. I said, hey, I said, how are you guys selling in this type of a market? You've got all the trucks and stuff and cars out on your lot. You've got the used car lot, but then you've got all this gigantic inventory in trailers and mobile homes. He said, it's easy. We don't sell them here in Ohio. We're off the internet. We sell them all over the world. And I said, give me an example. He says, okay, Saudi Arabia, somebody wanted 26 mobile homes. So they went ahead and contacted us, and we sold them to them. We didn't even have to dicker on the price. Somebody out in California wanted a mobile home, one of those big self-contained, self-driving motorhomes. And had no problem. They put a guy in there and drove it out to California for the guy and then flew the guy back to home. I mean, they're doing all that business. But still, you have these cars sitting on the lots. They're not moving. You might sell one or two a week, but then you get the used cars coming in. And I'll tell you what, people, you better start watching it, because you've got cars that are going to be coming in from Houston, Texas, and the floods, out west in California from all the fire damage and stuff that's out there, from Florida from the floods, from Mobile, Alabama from floods, from hurricanes. You want to check those cars over, because I'll tell you what, they can do some really fantastic stuff to rehab a car, but you want to check those cars over, and you want to know the history of that vehicle. Don't buy anything that was ever in a flood, because you're going to get burned for it. Trust me. Hey, we had an article about Wells Fargo. I know you like to listen about Wells Fargo.
The bank that just loves to screw you over.
Oh, yeah. Well, Victoria Guida went ahead and had an article. Year after scandal is exposed, Wells Fargo is under the gun for new consumer abuses. And it said, when Tim Sloan became Wells Fargo's CEO last year after the unveiling of a massive fraudulent account scandal, he told employees that they should expect more tough headlines. Well, he wasn't lying, and Washington's patience with the nation's third largest bank is thinner than ever. A year after regulators fined Wells Fargo $185 million for opening potentially millions of fake accounts, the bank is nowhere close to putting the scandal behind it. And Congress is threatening new hearings, and some Democrats have called on regulators to remove the bank's board for breaking up the lender entirely, or breaking up the lender entirely. And in fact, consumer abuses are just as fresh in lawmakers' minds as they were a year ago, with new revelations that the scope of the scandal was larger than originally thought, and that the bank charged hundreds of thousands of customers for auto insurance they didn't need. And another group of victims, the military veterans. And these new revelations are really disturbing. And that was according to Pat Toomey, he's a Republican from Pennsylvania. Now that bank has pulled so much stuff. You know, you want to know where you're putting your money. And if you go to the National Debt Clock at moneyandchange.weebly.com, on that page, there's bankcredit.com or bankreporting.com. And if you do that, you know, we're almost $20.5 trillion in debt. But if you go and you take a look at bankrate.com, check how your bank is doing. If it's a 5-star bank and you like the guys, you like who you're working with, and they're reputable, keep them. But if I had a choice to put money in something like Wells Fargo with all this stuff that's going on, I wouldn't. I would find another bank. I would find another credit union. I wouldn't even touch Wells Fargo. They might have some nice people working there, but due to the, I'll put it this way, criminal activity that was going on, I just don't trust that bank. You know, and you've got Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, or CFPB, and CFBP. They're downgrading Wells Fargo to a failing grade under the Community Reinvestment Act. And you take a look at all of this, and this week when I was driving home, I was listening to Clark Howard. And he was reaming them like you wouldn't believe. And he said something to the effect, Wells Fargo appears to be a criminal enterprise acting like a bank. And his recommendation was take your money out and put it somewhere else. And maybe that's a good suggestion. Find out what your bank is doing, and if you don't like it, move your money someplace else. And if they say, well, why are you leaving? You just tell them, I'm just pulling it out. You're not doing me any favors. I had a phone call today from what I call Fee Third, and they said, do you have any outstanding loans that we could consolidate? And this was like 5 minutes before the show was going to go on the air. And I said no, and I hung up. I mean, I don't need calls like that. I don't need calls from credit card companies. I pay my credit cards off. And you should too. Pay them off at the end of the month. You'll be farther ahead. Well, here's a question for you. Why is U.S. currency green?
You know, I heard a long time ago, if I remember right, it was something along the lines of it's the hardest, the particular color that they use is the hardest to mimic exactly, or something along those lines.
You can reach into the candy bowl and take out 2 pieces of candy for that on Halloween. According to Michelle Debczak, that's Debczak, she said the color of our money is so iconic. The word green has become synonymous with stacks of cash. Well, how did the hue end up in our bills in the first place? Well, the first evidence of the color green being used in federal currency dates back to 1861. And before then, the Continental Congress had experimented with issuing notes called Continentals to refund the Revolutionary War. But they were printed at such a high volume, they quickly lost their value. Sounds a little bit like the U.S. dollar now. Well, anyhow, these new green notes were printed for a similar reason, but this time it was the Union side of the Civil War that needed financing. Private state-chartered banks had been distributing their own paper money for decades, which led to a lack of cohesion in terms of the denominations and designs in circulation. In order to prevent the new bills from being photographed for counterfeit purposes, their backsides were printed with green ink, said to make that was made from palm juice. And the cameras of the area back then would only do black and white, and so they were called greenbacks. And the green coloring persevered, that's a hard word for me to say sometimes, all the way until 1929 when the government began instituting standard shapes and designs for currencies. And the decision to keep the original color was largely a practical one, according to the U.S. Bureau of Printing and Engraving. The ink was abundant and highly resistant to chemical and physical changes, and the color itself would basically be a smart fit because it symbolized stability. And green also signifies life and growth, and that's two qualities a nation wouldn't mind having being associated with their economy. If you want to check it out, you can go to mentalfloss.com, mentalfloss, and check that out. But that's kind of interesting on why it's green. Have you ever heard of script?
Yeah, I've heard money being referred to as script. It's sort of along the lines of an IOU, essentially.
Well, and sometimes, even here locally, many, many years ago, the stores would issue a script and they all agreed to it and they would use it, and it would be like for a discount on a product that they sold. And you could buy some items and it would get you maybe $3 in script. And the script would only be good in town. It was not good outside of town, and only local merchants would take it. It was kind of interesting. I still like gold and silver myself, even copper. I'm not much into paper and electronic money. Electronic money scares me. Every time you have to go to the grocery store and you have to buy medication, and your medication might run you $266. Do you have that in your wallet? No. So you have to take out the credit card and use it, and then pay that credit card bill at the end of the month. It gets kind of scary. Why is medication so expensive? I mean, I read a report someplace where what was sold for $5 in India was $200 here. I can't figure that out. Well, hey, there's a guy by the name of Gundlach, and Gundlach, and he warns the order of the financial system is about to be turned upside down. And he says, I'm not a big fan of bonds right now. And he's kind of like a bond king. And Jeff Gundlach told Bethany McLean, he said, I haven't been really a fan of bonds for the past 4 years, even though I manage them, and institutions have to own them for various reasons. But he's looking at copper and gold yields and everything else. And, he's still at the game, but he wants to see how this movie ends. And he's looking at everything and junk bonds and everything else. And he's thinking, hey, there's 7 risks for every one that exists. 7 risks. Do you really want to get involved in that? And he says, based on what he's saying, the financial system is about to be turned upside down. Well, here's the IMF's global financial crisis scenario, and it appeared in Zero Hedge. And I'll tell you what, we're running a little short on time. I'm going to try to post that at moneyandchange.weebly.com in the blog section. So if you want to go there, we'll take a look at the IMF ways to do things as far as financial crash. Hey, did you know that we talked about Illinois in the past? And the financial guru, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer for Illinois, doesn't know how many bills are unpaid. They don't even know that. And the state's going bankrupt. I mean, here's one of the things. Under current law, state agencies only have to report to the comptroller once a year on October 1st the amount of unpaid bills they had by the end of June. In Ohio, it's a lot worse than that, man. They're looking at you every month. Why isn't this bill paid? Why isn't, because it's interest that you pay on that. Then you take a look. Let's go out to Oregon. Here's something that popped up this week. Oregon has more food stamp recipients than public school students. That tells you something about Oregon. They're hurting. Well, let's get into some prep. There are 5 boring ways to prep for an economic collapse. And this was by Daisy Luther. And I get this every day. She talks about a lot of different things. But how do you survive an economic collapse? When you think about it, do pictures of Venezuela and Greece run through your head like a movie? By the way, Venezuela will probably be bankrupt by tomorrow, if not the next day. Desperation, hunger, and dirty faces. It's like a third world country. It doesn't start out like that, but it ends like that. There are many years of downward spiral in which you have reached that point. And you need to be collapse proof, according to Daisy. And basically, what you want to do is not work until you die. You want to have a little bit of retirement. So you have to learn to live more simply. And how do you do that? You know, you just don't go to the spa all the time, go to the gym, weekly mani-pedis for your hands and feet, tropical vacations, eat out every day for lunch, you know, go get the fancy foo-foo coffee, $100 a month for television, a nice dinner at a restaurant a couple times a week. What you want to do is live simply. Just leave that alone and live simply. Change how you eat. You spend a lot of money eating out. Well, start to learn to cook in. You know, you can have microwave food. You can fix fresh food, which is actually better for you. You can stop going out to eat all the time. You know, you can go to the grocery store and get rotisserie style chicken if you want and fix the rest at home. Stock up. You know, if a collapse comes, do you have food on hand to last you at least a month, 3 months, 6 months? The one thing I can hand to the Mormons is they actually do that. They have enough food in their homes for at least a minimum of a month, if not a whole year. And you can go to Aldi's. Now there's a new source that's coming into this area called Lidl, L-I-D-L, which is a competitor to Aldi's. And did you know that Aldi's also owns Trader Joe's? I didn't know that. And Trader Joe's has some pretty good stuff. I think it's the high end of Aldi's foods. But you can go into these stores and you can get bargains on different things. And they have some pretty good stuff. But you want to stock up on food, water, toilet paper. Everybody has to have at least a year's supply of toilet paper. Why? Because you can barter with it. If your neighbor down the street doesn't have any toilet paper and they have a lot of food, you can say, well, I'll trade you this roll of toilet paper for X amount of cans of food. Or you fix dinner for a week or something like that. I mean, toilet paper can be a very good bartering thing. Also, you want to pay off your debt. Pay it down. If you're in debt, look at a snowball method to help pay things off quickly. How about your home? Similar to a credit card, people end up paying several times the cost of the original mortgage due to the interest that it accrues over a 20 or 30-year term. Take a 15-year loan out. And that's what I did. My home's paid for now. I don't owe anybody except a car payment. And that's not much. Reduce your living expenses. Audit your spending on just about everything and see how much you can reduce your budget. And really get radical about cutting your costs. And you can change your life. You know, be thrifty. If you keep your air conditioner and heater cranked, you're throwing away money. Learn to adjust by putting on sweaters or using other alternative ways of staying hot or cold. You know, keep your heating bills low and reduce your expenses when it comes to a cable bill. As long as you have the internet, there are numerous streaming services out there which cost you $15 a month and allow you to watch all sorts of TV programs and movies anytime you want. And according to the author, she said, we haven't had cable for years. And they've been with Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. And also you can put those antennas up to get your broadcasting from other cities. And I think it'll only go maybe, 60 miles for one of those big antennas. But you're not paying the big cable bills. I mean, I used to be with one carrier, and They were charging me almost $200 a month. I said, forget that. Some other carrier came in and they said, we'll give you $29.95 a month. I jumped at it. So then my original carrier called me up, but why are you leaving? Because I just saved $70 a month. Well, we could have matched that. Well, you should have matched it in the first place. Have a nice life. See you later. But reduce your expenses, and you can do it. And also, if you go to moneyandchange.weebly.com, you can take a look in the blog, and besides 5 boring ways to prep for an economic collapse, the latest thing is the 369 Guide for Emergency Savings. The 369 Guideline for Emergency Savings. And you want to check that out. Now, when the grid goes down, you have to make sure that you have water, food, a way to keep warm. You have to have light. So you better have plenty of batteries. And if something happens, be prepared. Also, go to moneyandchange.weebly.com and check it out, because I've got some of the solutions to a lot of the problems that could hurt us. Check it out. A lot of videos there, a lot of things about being prepared. And I always like to give out a little bit of humor at the end of the show. At least I try. And in the Wrinkle City Gazette, back in the humor section on the moneyandchange.weebly.com, take a look at that. The West Texas Irish priest and the sergeant. He rose from his bed one morning. It was fine. New West Texans Mission Parish. He walked to the window of his bedroom to get a deep breath. And he noticed there was a jackass lying dead in the middle of his front lawn, and he called the police station, and the conversation went something like this. Good morning, this is Sergeant Jones. How might I help you? And the best of the day to yourself. This is Father O'Malley at St. Anne's Catholic Church. There's a jackass laying dead in me front lawn, and would you be so kind as to send a couple of your lads over to take care of the matter? Sergeant Jones reconsidered himself to be quite a wit and recognized the accent, thought he would have a little fun with the good father, and replied, well, now, Father, it was always my impression that you people took care of the last rites. And Father O'Malley said, it's certainly true, but we are also obliged to notify the next of kin, which is my reason for the call. Okay, so much for my little humor. Hey, one thing we forgot to mention about Open Eyes Network and your books.
I have a few of them.
Just a few?
Just a few. It's funny enough you bring this up. We just got the information that on November 10th, Veterans Day, in fact, my new book, Penitence, is going to be released in the public realm. So hopefully people will check that out. It's a really good book. It's a very disturbing book. It's a little grisly in parts, but it's a psychological horror, so I guess that's to be expected. But you guys can find the information about where you can find that book, as well as all of my other books, over at my website, originalworlds.com. I'd love for you guys to go and check it out. I also have, writing tips for people who are aspiring writers, writing prompts for those that are looking to, figure out what to write, and a lot of free stories and short stories, chapters, all kinds of great stuff are waiting for you guys over there. Again, that's originalworlds.com.
And hey, aren't we on YouTube?
We are indeed. YouTube.com/C/Open Eyes Network is the homepage for this and all of the other shows that I do.
Surprise. Well, hey, everybody have a safe Halloween. Watch out for people dressed as politicians, because they might actually be politicians. But, have a safe Halloween. Enjoy the weekend if you have decent weather. We're supposed to have rain and cold here in Ohio, and probably the same up in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. It's that season. But anyhow, Ira, that's all I've got this week. everybody, please donate to the show to keep us on the air, and you can do that by going to L&M Radio Network. And a big shout out to Michael Vera there. And we're through that network, also Open Eyes. And if you're ever in Columbia, South Carolina, check us out on WCET 101.7. And that's all I've got, so have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great, Stu. Thank you for all that you do. Everybody out there, have a great weekend. Be safe, have fun, and we will talk to you again real soon. Do you think social media is the end-all be-all? Do you live and breathe by Facebook and other platforms? Do you spend hours and hours endlessly going through posts by alleged friends in an endless quest to have a life? You need Fakeaway, available exclusively through the L&M Radio Network. Our crack scientific teams have worked tirelessly to perfect this product and have made it available to you through this limited offer. Fakeaway can solve the problems suffered by you and many others. It can help you understand you have been snowed by the fake media, the social media biases you encounter every time you click refresh, and even help your hair grow by keeping you from pulling it out over the smallest offenses. Get Fakeaway today, only through L&M Radio Network. Fakeaway is not for shills, disinfo agents, lovers of politicians who keep screwing the country, constant end-of-the-world predictors, liars, hostile radio show hosts, or snowflakes.